Welcome to the Down Under Cruises. In this episode, we're going to talk about what considerations are needed to plan your next cruise.
Well, g'day folks. It's Sean and Ilana here to talk about planning your next cruise.
Hi, I'm Ilana, and together Sean and I are the Down Under Cruises. Now, we're not experts by any means, we're not travel agents, we're not travel writers, but we have become addicted to cruising, only being on very few cruises, but we hope to impart to you, possibly people who have never cruised before, what we've learnt on our couple of cruises that we've done.
So what's the first thing on your list, Ilana?
Sean, I would think about what cruise line you want to go on, and that would involve a fair bit of homework. Now, we're a couple, we're middle-aged, we're not party people by any means, we are not taking young children with us. So for us, we have found so far that Princess is the best line for us. That doesn't mean that we would be exclusively Princess in the future. We want to experiment and experience other lines. But things like, are you after a luxury experience? Do you want an adventure cruise like Ponant to take out canoes and you go out and to the polar icebergs and have fun out there? Are you a laid-back couple, possibly retired, and you just want to enjoy quiet time sipping martinis and having a nice time out, meeting people and chatting and having a quiet cruise? Do you want a party, and Carnival or Royal Caribbean possibly, or Celebrity might be the way to go for you? It really depends on your needs. Do you have young children? Do you need water parks and water slides and dodgem cars and ice skating rinks? All these sorts of things are at your fingertips by getting onto Dr. Google, and a whole wide world of deck plans and ship plans are there for you.
So then what's number 2 on the list?
Well, I think after you've selected your cruise line, then you would look at your itinerary. Where is it that you want to go? Are you people who would love to go to a Pacific island or an island in the Caribbean? Do you want to explore the Mediterranean and visit beautiful ports there? Do you want to go up and see the Aurora Borealis up north, the Northern Lights? Really depends on what you're after, what experiences you've had previously. Do you like to go to the same places all the time? Do you want to experience something different? So itinerary really is something that you need to sit down and have a think about. Open up your atlas and maybe blindfold yourself and pop a pin in and choose something like that, or have a discussion, try something different possibly, or go to your old favourites. So itinerary that suits you and where you live, of course, how you're going to get there, and all those other things that you need to think about.
So where are you thinking about going?
Well, we've done the Pacific, we've done Fiji and Umea and Vanuatu, and we've done around New Zealand. Maybe the other side of the world is very tempting. I'd love to go up to Scandinavia and see the Northern Lights at some stage, and even down to Antarctica would be one of my bucket list cruises. Don't know about you, Sean. I know that you don't like the cold.
Cold is too cold for me.
No, you like warm weather, don't you?
I do. I like the warm weather.
I am partial to a Pacific island or two myself, mind you, but the Caribbean could be calling us at some stage soon. That would be fabulous.
That would be lovely.
That would be nice.
So now that we've got the itinerary out of the way, what about the costs?
Well, this is the big one. Of course, you've got to think about how much money you're prepared to pay. Do you have the money to pay for it? So cost involves, well, how long do you want to cruise for? If it's your first time, you may not want a 2-week cruise. You may not enjoy it. Why not have a little taster for a 3-nighter and go somewhere a little bit less expensive, see how you like it, and then from there, if you enjoy it, then you can choose a longer one and that might be the way to start at least. So with cost, okay, lots of factors to think about. Your embarkation port, obviously no costs to get there. What is included in your fare? Now most cruise lines have dining rooms where the main dining is included in your fare. Basic tea and coffee, water is included, or your entertainment, of course. However, there are a lot of other costs that you may not be aware of, where there are specialty restaurants that are add-ons per head. There are beverage packages. Most cruise lines include or have as extras, I should say, beverage packages. If you're drinkers, you need to weigh up whether it's worth buying because it's per person per day. Are you big alcohol drinkers? Is it going to be worth you paying up to $100 a day possibly to get your 15 alcoholic drinks in plus juices? So you need to know by doing homework again, as it's research and homework, how much the drinks are on board. Multiply that by how much you think you're going to drink per day, keeping in mind that you'll have port days where you'll be off the ship. Is it going to be worth it? So they're the sorts of things. Now be aware that when you get a cost for your cruise, that it is in your local currency, so you know exactly how much it is that you're spending. Most cruises have what's called onboard credit, so you don't actually pay cash on board. You give your credit card number if you have one, or a debit card number, and you have a folio, onboard folio. So you're not actually exchanging cash as you, for example, buy a drink. It's put on your cruise card or your medallion, and at the end of the cruise you can front up to the desk and pay that via your credit card, or you can put cash on, load cash as you go, but make sure that you check your spending to make sure that it's correct, possibly each night or every second day. So first of all, your currency, how much it is actually in your currency, be aware what is included, that's really important. And if you're taking a cruise from a port that is not your home port, you'll have to factor in the cost of that. Don't arrive at your embarkation port the day of the cruise. Imagine you were flying in the middle of winter somewhere and your flight gets snowed in. No aircraft is taking off from where you are and you won't be arriving at your cruise port. The ship will not wait for you, so you'll be standing there waving bye-bye as the ship sails off into the sunset. So arrive the night, even a day before, to be sure, so you've got hotel costs as well. If you're driving and you have to park your car for 2 or 3 weeks, you've got the factor in the cost of that. So just be aware of all the little extras that you will have to pay for. So the upfront cost that the travel agent will give you, or your cruise line if you're booking directly by them, is not going to be the end.
You know, there is an elephant in the room, and the elephant is the word gratuities.
Yeah, well, that too. Of course, being in Australia, we don't have gratuities put onto the cost of the cruise. However,
it's not our custom, is it?
It's not our custom, but we know how hard the stewards work. They spend and all the crew spend months away from their home. They work hours and hours and hours behind the scenes and do the bend over backwards. So it's always a good idea to tip, give them cash in hand, either at the beginning and at the end, particularly your cabin stewards. So always have a few extra dollars in your pocket.
Okay, Ilana, now that we've got our ship and we've got our place, what about the excursions?
That's a good question, Sean, because we just talked about cost before. Now, excursions are also an extra cost to think about as well. Now, all the ships offer their own excursions. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go on them. You pre-book those via your personaliser that most cruise lines offer you. It's an online portal that shows all your booking and everything else that you can pre-order on your cruise, and excursions are part of that. But you can, of course, book private excursions off the ship. Now, when you arrive at a destination, There will be plenty of spruikers outside waiting for you and with costs, and most of them will take you to the same places that your more expensive cruise line excursions are to go, and they're basically the same excursions. However, buyer be warned, if you are on a ship excursion and it runs late for any reason, the car or the van or the bus breaks down, something happens along the way, the ship will wait for you. Just be aware of that. If you go on
That's
a
an important
private
one.
excursion, the ship doesn't know where you are. Anything happens to you, the ship will not wait for you.
That's
So
an important one.
It's a really important thing to consider. So you've got the cost of those. Now, again, homework and research. When you go to a place, you might decide that one of your destinations is, for example, Barcelona. Beautiful place. Do your homework. Find out the places of interest that you are interested in. If you're interested in art in particular, and say Gaudi and Gaudi's architecture, there will be excursions that will take you to see Gaudi buildings and Park Güell. If you are interested in, say, the history of the Olympic Games, find an excursion that will take you up the mountain to the Barcelona Olympic Stadium. If you want to shopping, then you can go your own way, go and buy a hop-on, hop-off bus ticket. But no, to save time and not waste time, the precious few hours that you have at each destination, because most cruise lines don't stay overnight. By the time you dock at the port and you're offloaded, particularly if you're doing tours, the ship tours get first dibs on getting off. So time is precious, and the ships usually leave at about 4. You need to be back on board by about 4 p.m, possibly 5 p.m for a 6 p.m departure, so you don't really have an awful lot of time. So to avoid the time wasting, know what it is that you want to see and do. Know where it is that you need to go in order to pick up tickets. Pre-book if possible. Online, the internet is a marvellous tool to use. So do some investigations, look at your cruise personaliser, go through all the cruises, excursions that they offer. Think about, will it suit me? Do I have children with me? All those sorts of things. Will it be good for children? Etc. Do I have mobility issues? Is this an excursion that's suitable for me if I have mobility issues? Is it one that involves a lot of walking? Can I take a mobility scooter with me? Or if I'm in a wheelchair, is it suitable? So really think and plan for those sorts of things too.
We did both. We did a couple of ship tours, but then we also, when we went into Suva, we booked our own. That was awesome.
Yeah, we found a private tour company that was highly recommended, and we actually had our own personalised tour.
And that was awesome.
Yeah, it was fabulous. So you've got choices galore out there, but again, the main thing that you need to think about is what happens if we're late. And on that aspect, I think travel insurance is a really important thing.
Oh, yes.
You don't want to be stuck anywhere.
No.
And get into trouble.
And of recent times, travel insurance stories have been prevalent out there with people being caught off in places that haven't had, when they haven't had travel insurance, and they've landed up in a lot of financial strife.
Yeah.
So travel insurance is key. I would agree with that 100%.
If you can't afford travel insurance, then you can't afford to cruise, to be honest. It's just not worth it.
So now, Ilana, the next question is, what sort of documentation do we need for a cruise?
Okay, well, like any other holiday, there are things that you need to have on you, with you. Of course, going overseas, if you're leaving your country's waters, you will need a passport. Now, even if you are going on a 3-day cruise, for example, or in Australia, you're going from, say, Melbourne to Adelaide, I would always take my passport. Now, they might tell you you just need photo ID, like a driver's licence. I would take my passport. Now, taking your passport, most countries require 6 months validity on your passport from the day that you return, I believe. Certainly 6 months validity. So just be careful that you are not on your cruise and your passport expires the day that you arrive back. Number 1, you may not arrive back on that day that is in your itinerary. Things happen. Hurricanes occur, natural phenomenon, weather-wise. At the moment, we've got the very relevant topic of the coronavirus, where we have our passengers on the Diamond Princess quarantined in Yokohama. Things happen. So please make sure that you organise your documentation, passport, well beforehand. Also with a passport, you may need a visa. Make sure that you go to the appropriate government authorities and make sure that you get the correct advice as to whether you do need a visa or not. You don't want to be on the ship and you won't be able to get off because you don't have the appropriate paperwork on you. We've spoken briefly about travel insurance. Really important that you have travel and are covered for medical expenses too. Now, excursions might be cancelled. Some travel policies will allow you to claim for cancelled excursions for whatever reason. So you might want to, I think you make sure that you read your policies really careful regarding cancellation. Now, that includes the cruise itself. Be aware whether you may have just paid for your deposit and you haven't paid the full. It's not the time to pay up for the full fare. Is that deposit, if you cancel before you pay the full fare, is it a refundable deposit? If you cancel after you've paid in full, what happens to that money? Do you get some back? Do you forfeit the cost of the fare? So just be aware of all that and make sure that you read the fine print really carefully. Now, let's get back to, we've talked about passports and visas, travel insurance. Make sure that you've got photocopies of those documents as well. Keep them in the safe with you on the ship. Medications. If you have a number of medications, a good idea to have a doctor's letter. So the doctor stating that clearly setting out the medications, the dosage, because you might get to some countries, Singapore is one, for example, that's quite strict on particularly opioid, painkillers like Endo and Oxycontin, that you will need them in the original package, and whether actually you are allowed to bring them in. That is why you really should have a doctor's letter with you. So your doctor, particularly your travel doctor, would know that information, and you might want to double check that by ringing and getting in contact with that particular country's embassy or consulate to make sure that you get the correct and appropriate and relevant information regarding medications. Medications, insurance, documentation, official documentation, the things that you need.
And maybe we should also check with travel advisory, because there are some places that are banned that you shouldn't be going to. Again, case in point now with the coronavirus, certain places are off limits. So be aware of what is off limits, would you agree?
Oh, for sure. But if you're booked to go to particular countries that are having health issues, I'm sure that the cruise lines are sensible enough to cancel those cruises anyway and hopefully inform you in enough time. And again, this is where travel insurance comes in. If you've paid up and you've got you're flying to a different embarkation port, that you can claim on travel insurance.
Okay, so now we've done the cruise ships, we've spoken about where we're going, we've spoken about the excursions we're going to have, the paperwork that's required. Let's get to number 7, the cabins.
The cabins, okay. Cabins are really purely personal choice. Now, cost, of course, is a huge factor. You have about 4 choices on most cruise ships. We start with the interior rooms, which are the cheapest option. Many people like having an interior room because it means because they're cheaper, you can afford to go on more cruises. Now, you are in darkness in an interior room. However, you put the television on, you put them on the webcam, and then you feel as if you know where you're going and you can see where you're going and you've got an ocean view on the TV. Next level up is a ocean view, which is a window. Now there is obstructed and unobstructed. Now the best thing to do there is to look at the deck plans. Every cruise line has the ability to look up your cruise ship with the deck plans, and you can see clearly where your cabin is situated, is it obstructed or not obstructed, and which deck your cabin is on. Next up is a balcony. Now, balconies range in price. Again, it's related to where they're situated on the ship, what deck level, whether they're forward or aft or midship, and also obstructed and unobstructed. Then you go up to your mini suites and your full suites. So again, budget comes into play here as well. So look at the deck plans, get to know the cabin types and levels, and try and choose your own, because then you know what you're getting, rather than leave it up to the travel agents, because you can have what's called a guaranteed room. You say, I want an unobstructed balcony, and you may not know what cabin you're getting until you actually embark on the day.
Okay, the big number 8. We've taken care of all the important bits, like the cruise ship, etc. But are there any other little knickknacks that we need to consider, important things?
Well, okay, so you've booked your cruise, you've chosen your cabin, you've got all your documentation, you've done your research, you know where you're going specifically. Now, what if you have food allergies? What if you need a CPAP machine? What if you have insulin? Okay, you need to advise the cruise line that you have particular allergies or intolerances, you have special dietary needs. Your cruise personaliser will have a place for you to note these. For example, if you are gluten-free, you will put that in your personaliser, and when you arrive on the ship, you will go to the main dining room and speak to the maitre d' there, and what will happen is you will get a copy of the menu per day the night before, and you will discuss with the maitre d' what changes need to be made so that you can enjoy your meal. Now, nowadays, cruise lines are very aware and conscious of people's dietary needs, so you can be sure that you will be looked after. Now, often you may not want to eat in the main dining room, so you might choose to eat in the buffet. So you also need to make sure that you go to the right areas in the buffet, and make sure that you choose from the gluten-free section if that's your dietary issue. Make sure that you are aware, and that others on the ship are aware. Insulin. Most cabins have a little fridge. If you need to pop your insulin, keep any medications in the fridge, take a little fridgy bag with you and keep it in the fridge.
Would you suggest it's a good idea to let the medical centre know that you're carrying insulin?
I would say so. I think it makes sense that you do that. That will go into your cruise personaliser as well, that you carry insulin and that you have it on you, of course.
What about the CPAP and trying to get some distilled water?
Oh, look, the amount of passengers who take a CPAP machine with them is pretty high. There is the opportunity in the cruise personaliser to say that you have a CPAP and that you need distilled water. And even if you didn't, we didn't once, Sean uses a CPAP, and they were quite happily brought on the first day. We told the cabin steward that we needed distilled water, and quite happily it was there, and it is complimentary. You don't have to pay extra for it. Mobility issues as well. I think you need to inform also via your personaliser that you have a mobility issue. You may need a stateroom that's designed for wheelchair access. So don't forget to have a look at that as one of your options for cabins as well. Be aware that the corridors are extremely narrow, and particularly when the stewards come around and have their trolleys outside the room, that there may not be an awful lot of room to store a scooter outside your cabin. So you may need to select a cabin, if you don't need a wheelchair access cabin, where there is a wider entrance, say, out into the main areas where the elevators are, just so that it's folded and out the way and not being an impediment in the corridors.
On a more happier note as well, don't forget to put into your a personaliser if you're having any special occasions happening.
Correct, yes. How could I forget that? You might be celebrating a special anniversary or birthday, honeymoon. That goes in your personaliser. You might get a very pleasant surprise when you arrive at your cabin. There is often decorations on your door, and you can also order flowers for your loved ones via the personaliser, chocolate dipped strawberries. They have special packages as well for that. You might want to renew your wedding vows, have a special dinner, so that could be pre-booked as well. But they will certainly celebrate your birthday when you go to the dining room. You often get a little special little cake presented to you at your table, and the waiters and stewards will break into song for you. Happy birthday or happy anniversary to you.
Well, folks, if you've enjoyed the information on this presentation, please click on the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll get you informed with when we've got more updates coming through, and give us a like, please.